I want to start today's show off with an oldie but a goodie question we ask here on the channel, which is, who was the Browns quarterback when you first became a fan? I don't think there's a better fan base to ask this question to, so show your age a little bit and let me know who that quarterback was down below while this intro video rolls. Let's talk about 5 players on the Browns who are on the hot seat to varying degrees, some way more than others, after the first 2 weeks of NFL free agency. So let's jump right into it so you guys can get back to watching the madness. Starting with running back Jerome Ford. This one pretty much speaks for itself, right? The Browns in free agency did not go out and get a clear and obvious improvement at the position, but they did sign 2 other running backs, D'Onta Foreman and Nyheim Hines. So with Kareem Hunt being a free agent and it's unlikely he returns, Jerome Ford was definitely sitting on his couch wondering, are they going to just hand the job over to me until Nick Chubb returns again, or are they going to bring in some competition and make it more of a committee backfield? And clearly it's obvious which direction the Browns went with, and that's the right direction too. D'Onta Foreman, I would say, is the much more established back compared to Nyheim Hines that they added in free agency. Last year for the Bears, you can look at his stats against Jerome Ford's. Ford played a lot more football, but the thing with Jerome Ford is, sure, 813 rushing yards, 4 on the ground. He had 5 in the air. He was a pretty versatile back for this team. He was a decently well-rounded guy that wasn't an obvious liability in one particular element of his game. But we shared this on yesterday's show. Jerome Ford had 2 very nice 69-yard rushes against the Steelers and the Colts. If you remove those 2 rushes, his stat line looks like this. 202 carries, 675 yards. He averages 3.3 yards a carry and 3 touchdowns. So I don't think you can go into every single week banking on Jerome Ford getting a 69-yard rush. And when you don't have those big plays, which, hey, give him credit for, let's not act like he did not earn those great plays through his own hard work, but those aren't reliable and dependable plays every single Sunday. And once you take those out, his average really plummets to a near unplayable 3.3 yards per carry. Whereas last year with Foreman, he was in a very similar role where he did a pretty good job in, right? He was in a committee backfield, which the Browns are looking to build until Nick Chubb is able to come back and play at 100%. And he kind of passed the rock around with Khalil Herbert and rookie Roschon Johnson for the Bears. Now, Foreman was not able to really stick in Chicago at the end of the year. He was a healthy scratch down the end. He battled an ankle injury earlier on. So I don't think D'Onta Foreman can be relied on to be a running back who can give you 17 great starts. But the Browns don't need that from him, right? They just need him to help hold down the fort until Chubb is able to return. Now, not just the Foreman acquisition makes Jerome Ford's seat a little bit hotter, but how about Nyheim Hines as well? Not a running back that's going to do much at all in between the tackles, but he can definitely help out in the receiving game. And that's something the Browns liked about Ford coming out of Cincinnati, right? His ability to be a versatile back. So basically, the Browns signed 2 running backs in Johnson and Hines that both stand out in areas that Ford was able to do, almost like they're replacing him in the aggregate, okay? Johnson, Foreman, I beg your pardon, a much better running back in between the tackles, can't do much pass protection, can't do much in the receiving department. Nyheim Hines does not run between the tackles. He's hardly a running back. He's more of like a Demetric Felton, if you will, and he's going to probably take some of that receiving workload off of Jerome Ford's plate. So it's going to be a training camp battle. It really will be. And it'll be fun to watch, right? Who is this team starting running back? Who's going to get the majority of the workload until Nick Chubb returns, whenever that date is? And Jerome Ford, he's got to bring it this camp because there is a possibility the Browns go out and draft a running back. And if that rookie running back exceeds expectations in training camp and outshines Ford, I don't think you can rule out Cleveland cutting Jerome Ford, sticking him on the practice squad, and rolling with D'Onta Foreman, Nyheim Hines, and a rookie as your 3 backs until Chubb is healthy enough to return. So let's just assume if Chubb is out, which, hey, I would love to see Nick Chubb beat science and come back as soon as possible because no one thinks anyone can return from that serious of an injury that quickly. But If Chubb is out week 1, who should start? I think it should be D'Onta Foreman. The more I talk about it, the more I warm up to the idea of the way he played in 2022 with the Panthers. Wasn't even the starting running back coming into the season. He rushes for nearly 1,000 yards. Deuce Staley, get to work and get these backs ready until Chubb comes back. Next player on the hot seat, let's go with quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Similar to Ford, this one kind of speaks for itself, right? After Deshaun Watson, you've got Jameis Winston, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and Tyler Huntley all battling for QB 2, 3, and 4, with Jameis having the, clear path to winning that QB 2 battle, but every so often we do see a clear front runner lose that backup job in free agent or in training camp, whatnot. Happened last year with the Bears, right? With PJ Walker, who ended up coming to the Browns as a result. But DTR last year, I felt like he did improve as the starts went along, which is exactly what you should expect from starters. But I was a little surprised to see the Browns go out and not add just one, but 2 quarterbacks in free agency. So now you've got an odd man out situation where if all 4 of these quarterbacks are healthy come roster cutdown day, I don't see the Browns putting all 4 on the active 53-man roster. So someone's got to be the odd man out. And it's not going to be Jameis Winston most likely. He just signed his contract with Cleveland. It's got some guaranteed money in it. So unless he really stinks it up in training camp in the preseason, we can pretty much pencil him in, which means you've got Tyler Huntley and DTR battling for that QB3 job. So who's it going to be? The guy with loads of experience, played and started a playoff game for the Ravens, or DTR, who comes off a shaky rookie season where I felt like he was probably biting off more than he could chew, and I say he was, like the Browns were giving him. Like that Ravens game was just being fed to the Lions, essentially. And then he improves and battles throughout the season, but I think Tyler Huntley's probably got the better inside track for getting that third final QB spot, but it remains to be seen. All right, before we get on to the other players on the hot seat, we are closing in on 34,000 subscribers, less than 150 to go, 146 to be precise. So join us if you are looking to add to your Browns news, rumors, just overall content rotation, especially with the draft warming up. You don't want to miss anything related to your team. So if you like today's video, consider subscribing down below. We're going to lump these next 2 players in together. It is defensive lineman Siaki Ika and Isaiah McGuire. Now, why are they on the hot seat? Not for the same level of reason of Jerome Ford and DTR, because their expectations shouldn't be too high since they hardly played last year, but for the mere fact of if they were hoping to step into a bigger role just by birthright, just because they were drafted and a vacancy opened up, they are disappointed because the Browns quickly plugged those holes on the defensive line in free agency, right? Bringing back Za'Darius Smith, Shelby Harris, Maurice Hurst, signing Quentin Jefferson. I mean, these are 3 returning players and 1 incoming player, all at the exact same positions of Ika and Isaiah McGuire. So there's not going to be a very easy path for these 2 guys to step into a bigger role in 2024. Last season, we saw a little bit of Isaiah McGuire towards the end, especially when Okoronkwo was dealing with that pec injury. Ika, we didn't really see at all pretty much until the final game of the year, I think it was, against the Bengals. They combined for 194 snaps. Isaiah McGuire had all 6 of those combined tackles. He even had a sack, I'm pretty sure, against the Bengals. So we rarely saw either of these 2 players last year. Ika, a 3rd-round pick, and McGuire, a round 4, round 5 pick out of Mizzou last year. So 2 guys that didn't get a whole lot of runway, but hey, they were on a very crowded defensive line with lots of veterans. It was not a team looking to invest in youth and kind of tank, if you will. But you would think that maybe this coaching staff would have a little bit more belief in them going into year 2, where they don't feel the need to go out in free agency and sign 4 players at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times the rate that you could pay Ika and McGuire for that same job. But clearly the Browns coaching staff doesn't have that much confidence in them to not go out and sign players at the identical positions of these 2 guys. 5th and final hot seat, he's in a very distant hot seat category. It's Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Not for the same reasons at all whatsoever for the first 4 players, but because of his long-term possibility in Cleveland. right? The Browns in the last few months have inked rising players to long-term extensions. Jerry Jeudy, Grant Delpit, they have both received 3-year extensions. So now the question kind of becomes, is there a spot for JOK long-term? Well, if you look at over the cap for the Browns' 2025 cap space, I know we're thinking ahead here, but this is what teams do. They're actually in the red, $15.2 million. So it's not like the Browns have a ton of money just waiting for them next year that they can start signing players to extensions. Now, you can always manipulate the cap. You can release guys, trade guys, restructure contracts. So that alone should not be an impassable hurdle for the Browns to get over if they want to keep JOK long term. But it definitely does create some level of a hurdle, right? Especially when you look at the 2025 biggest cap hits for this team. There's a lot of players on here that I don't see the Browns wanting to move on from to alleviate this cap issue they have next year, right? Not moving on from Deshaun Watson, not moving on from Denzel Ward. I doubt they move on from Joel Bitonio. I doubt they move on from David Njoku. Maybe Wyatt Teller, but he's playing really good football, and I think he is just the lazy answer as to a guy the Browns could move on from. He just made the Pro Bowl. I don't see him just regressing that badly overnight. Myles Garrett's obviously not going anywhere. I don't think Dalvin Tomlinson will be out after year 2. Maybe Jack Conklin if he doesn't really find a starting role this year for that big of a cap hit. So, yes, JOK has played so well that he is deserving of an extension. It's just a question of when and whether or not the Browns can really get it done. I mean, the way he played last year, if the Browns get that similar level of production in year 2 with Jim Schwartz and JOK together, Cleveland really has something, and they're going to want to hold on to him. I want to believe, and I do believe, Andrew Berry will ultimately find a way. If that means restructuring contracts, freeing up cap space now or in 2025, and pushing the can down the road to hold on to a core piece of this defense, so be it. But if the Browns feel like, listen, we're already a little bit in a tight spot with the cap, and JOK is looking for a much bigger contract than we can afford, that may be your cap casualty, where in other years, if the Browns didn't have a bunch of big contracts on their books, maybe they'd be okay with spending a little bit more than they expected. But if they've got a number and they can't go above that number and JOK won't go below that number, well, that may be an instance where you see like Patrick Queen leave the Ravens after a really good season because the Ravens simply wouldn't go that high in their spending. All right, that will do it for us on today's show. Morehead State can hold on to beat Illinois. It's 11-7, right? 11-9. So you might have noticed my eyes were dotting during the show. Big Cullen, what are you thinking, buddy?
Thinking
5 of spades. I like it. I'm thinking Duquesne fucked my bracket. That's what I'm thinking. Not that I beat BYU. I had Mississippi State beating UNC though, so that one that stinks. That's a tough one. Yeah, Mississippi State can shoot lights out against my Volunteers, but not against the Sparties. Okay, enough of me. How about a 10 of clubs? What'd you say? 6 of spades. Off the back iron. And we're 13-11 Morehead State. All right, we'll let you guys get back to the rest of the madness, and we will see you all later.